Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are doing something, well, a little different with our source material. We are taking a temporal leap.
Right. A jump forward.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We are stacking up the data, the projections, and the engineering specifications to transport you to the automotive landscape of the year 2026.
It is a fascinating year to land in because if you look at the trajectory of the electric vehicle market, 2026 represents a specific tipping point. The noise has finally settled.
Yeah.
The early adopter phase where people bought electric vehicles just to have something new that is effectively over.
We have moved completely past that novelty era. We aren't asking if this technology works anymore. We know it works. The question for 2026 is, how efficiently does it work?
And that is the key word today, efficiency. We are looking at what we call the queens of efficiency. We have pulled the technical dossiers on 3 specific contenders.
3 cars that represent 3 radically different philosophies of what a car should be in this mature market.
Precisely. And these aren't just random picks. The data suggests these models define the benchmark for 2026.
First, we have the Hyundai IONIQ 6. This is essentially a technological manifesto for the mass market, focused on value.
Right.
Then we have the Mercedes-Benz CLA. This represents a kind of futuristic, high-tech digital luxury.
Yes, very focused on charging technology.
And finally, we have the Lucid Air Pure, which is just pure engineering opulence.
3 very strong, very distinct directions.
So here's our mission for this deep dive. We're going to bypass the marketing noise. We want to look at the raw efficiency. We want to help you understand the literal weight of every kilometer on the battery and ultimately the cold, hard economics of owning these vehicles long term.
Which is the metric that actually matters to you, because in 2026, efficiency isn't just about saving the planet. It is about the economics of your wallet. It is about how much energy and therefore money you are burning to get from point A to point B.
Let's start with the most obvious differentiator, the thing you see before you even open the door, the design.
Yes.
But we aren't talking about aesthetics for vanity's sake here. In the electric vehicle world, shape is physics.
Exactly. In the internal combustion era, you could design a brick, put a massive engine in it, and it would move. It would be highly inefficient, but it would move.
You could brute force it.
You could. But in the electric era, you simply cannot do that. The air is your enemy. You have to fight for every meter of range.
So let's look at the Hyundai IONIQ 6 first. It has a very specific, almost polarizing look. They call it the streamliner.
It is a fascinating mix. It
Wow.
feels retro, almost like those 1930s Aero coupes, but clearly futuristic. The critical thing here, though, is the teardrop shape.
Why a teardrop specifically? Is that just a stylistic choice?
No, it is pure aerodynamics. If you drop water, it naturally forms a tear shape. Physics dictates that this is the most efficient shape for an object moving through a fluid, and air is, of course, a fluid.
Right.
By mimicking this curve, Hyundai drastically reduces the drag coefficient. It reduces wind noise and engine strain at high speeds.
Which explains that sloping back end.
Exactly. By tapering the rear, you minimize the turbulent low-pressure zone that drags behind a car and pulls it backward. Less drag means less resistance. Less resistance means the battery doesn't have to work as hard to maintain highway speeds. The shape does the work, so the motor doesn't have to.
It is slipping through the air unnoticed. Now, contrast that with the Mercedes-Benz CLA. The philosophy there feels entirely different.
It is. The CLA is less of a retro experiment and more of a digital pebble. It is the high-tech aesthetic. It looks like an elegant premium sedan, but if you look closely at the flush door handles, the way the grille integrates, it is smoothed out like a river stone.
It looks like a computer mouse on wheels.
In the best possible way. It is designed to signal that this is a machine of software. It tells you that the value here is in the digital brain, not just the metal body.
And then we have the Lucid Air Pure. This is the luxury contender. Usually luxury means big, boxy, and imposing, but Lucid plays a completely different game.
Lucid is obsessed with what they call space architecture. Their design priority was maximizing interior space through engineering without creating a massive external footprint.
They wanted the car to be incredibly aerodynamic, but they refused to compromise the cabin size.
That is the challenge they set for themselves. Usually, to get aerodynamics, you have to squash the cabin like the Hyundai does with its roofline. Lucid solved this through miniaturization of the components. Visually, the car is minimalist. It doesn't have huge spoilers. It achieves its goals quietly.
So the external design is the first step in the battle for efficiency. But let's move to the technical analysis, the powertrain.
The numbers game.
Yes, and for you listening, We need to clearly define the gold standard metric here. We aren't talking about miles per gallon anymore.
No, in 2026, the metric that matters is kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers.
Just to make sure we are all on the same page. This measures consumption. So, like golf scores, the lower the number, the better.
Correct. It measures how much energy from the battery you deplete to travel a set distance. If the number is low, your electricity bill is low.
So, looking at the data for these three, who takes the crown?
It is a fierce competition, but the new record holder for this specific segment is the Mercedes-Benz CLA.
The luxury brand beats the efficiency specialist. What are the actual numbers?
It consumes approximately 12.5 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers.
Wow.
For context, getting down to 12.5 in a premium sedan is an incredible engineering feat.
How are they doing that? We talked about the digital pebble shape, but that cannot be the whole story.
It is not. Aerodynamics is only half the equation. The real secret lies in the transmission. The Mercedes-Benz CLA uses a two-speed transmission.
Wait, a two-speed transmission? Most electric cars basically have one gear. They just spin faster to go faster. Why introduce gears?
Optimization. Think of it like a bicycle. If you only have one gear, it is either too hard to pedal uphill, or your legs are spinning frantically on a flat road to keep up speed. Most electric vehicles settle for a middle gear that is okay at everything, but perfect at nothing.
And Mercedes split that difference.
Exactly. They have one gear optimized for city driving high torque, getting that heavy battery moving from a stoplight. Then they have a second gear specifically for highway cruising. It drops the RPM of the motor, keeping it in its sweet spot of efficiency.
That makes perfect sense. Specialized tools for specialized tasks. Now, let's pivot to the Lucid Air Pure. You mentioned they achieve space through miniaturization. How does that translate to the efficiency numbers?
You would assume a large flagship sedan like the Lucid would be an energy hog, but it consumes between 13.0 and 14.0 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers.
That is very close to the Mercedes figures.
It is, and they achieve it without the two-speed gearbox. The secret here is the motor itself. Lucid developed a proprietary microelectric motor.
Micro sounds a bit weak for a luxury car.
It is far from weak. It is extremely light and incredibly power dense. Because they figured out how to make the motor, the inverter, and the transmission into one tiny unit, they shaved hundreds of kilograms off the car's weight. Less weight means less energy needed to move it.
So Mercedes wins by optimizing the gearing, and Lucid competes by optimizing the weight. Where does that leave the Hyundai IONIQ 6?
The Hyundai sits right in the middle, consuming approximately 13.5 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers.
Solid performer.
Very solid. It relies heavily on that passive aerodynamic teardrop shape. It proves that you don't necessarily need a two-speed gearbox or motor miniaturization if your basic physics are sound.
But efficiency is only one side of the coin. You can have the most efficient car in the world, but if it takes 4 hours to charge, nobody wants it. We need to talk about the charging pit stop.
This is the friction point for most buyers. But all three of these cars utilize high-voltage architectures.
Let's break that down for the listener who isn't an electrical engineer. Why does high voltage matter?
Think of charging a battery like filling a bucket with water. Amps are the width of the hose, and voltage is the pressure of the water. If you want to fill the bucket fast, you can increase the hose width, which makes the charging cable heavy and hot, or you can just crank up the pressure. That is high voltage.
Understood. So who has the highest pressure? The Speed King.
In terms of raw peak power, the Mercedes-Benz CLA takes the lead again. It has a peak charging power of 320 kilowatts.
320 kilowatt. Translate that to a real-world road trip. I pull over. What happens?
You recover 300 kilometers of range in just 10 minutes.
That is genuinely fast. That is barely a bathroom break.
Exactly. By the time you buy a coffee, the car is ready for another 3 hours of highway driving. It completely removes waiting anxiety.
Now, what about the Hyundai IONIQ 6? Hyundai was actually one of the first to bring this high-voltage tech to the mainstream.
They were pioneers. The IONIQ 6 uses an 800-volt architecture. A few years ago, this was technology reserved for $250,000 sports cars. Hyundai democratized it.
And the result at the charger?
It charges from 10% to 80% in 18 minutes. It is reliable, accessible speed.
And finally, the Lucid Air Pure.
The Lucid supports a peak charging power of 250 kilowatts. In real terms, it recovers about 200 kilometers in 12 to 15 minutes.
That sounds slower. If Mercedes does 300 kilometers in 10 minutes and Lucid does 200 kilometers in 15 minutes, isn't Lucid losing here?
Strictly looking at the stopwatch, yes. However, we have to look at the total range. The Lucid Air Pure offers a total range exceeding 700 kilometers on a full charge.
So you might charge slightly slower, but you are charging much less often.
Precisely. If you can drive 700 kilometers, you might simply skip the charging stop that the Mercedes driver has to make. It is about total travel time.
The car can outlast the driver's bladder.
Exactly.
Let's move inside. The efficiency and charging are great, but the interior is where you actually live. What is the experience inside these cars? Let's start with the Hyundai.
The vibe inside the Hyundai is a minimalist living room. It is clean and uncluttered.
Is there a standout feature?
There is a lovely detail on the steering wheel. Instead of a logo, it has 4 interactive pixel lights. These lights communicate the charging status. You can see at a glance how your charge is progressing just by the color and animation.
Very clever. But I have to ask about that teardrop shape. Aerodynamics usually come at a cost to interior space.
There is a trade-off. The legroom is fantastic, but because of that sloping roofline, the headroom for rear passengers is reduced.
So watch your head in the back. What about the Mercedes?
The Mercedes is dominated by the MBUX Superscreen. It is a single glass panel covering the entire dashboard.
That sounds visually overwhelming.
It can be, but the genius is the software. It uses artificial intelligence that actually learns your habits. If you always turn on the seat heater when the temperature drops, the car learns that pattern and suggests the function before you even ask for it.
Proactive luxury. And the Lucid Air Pure.
Yeah.
You described it as engineering luxury.
Yes. It feels like the future of sustainable luxury. You won't find cheap plastics or even traditional leather here. Lucid leans into materials like alpaca textiles and open-pore wood.
Alpaca textiles.
It is sustainable, durable, and has a unique warm texture. And the highlight is the panoramic roof. Because the car uses those micromotors, the cabin is pushed outward. The glass canopy offers breathtaking views.
Now, we have to talk about the economics of ownership, because we are looking beyond the purchase price to the running costs and resale value for 2026.
The total cost of ownership. Let's assume you drive about 20,000 kilometers a year.
Let's break it down by charging location.
For home charging, the costs are surprisingly similar. You are looking at between 500 and 560 euros per year. The Mercedes comes in cheapest at approximately 500 euros, simply because of that extreme efficiency.
And highway charging?
Highway charging costs range from about 1,750 euros for the Mercedes to nearly 1,950 euros for the Hyundai. Again, the Mercedes wins purely on physics. It needs less energy, so you buy less energy.
But running costs aren't just fuel. What about maintenance?
This is where the Hyundai IONIQ 6 wins. Hyundai offers a 5-year unlimited mileage warranty. This keeps your out-of-pocket maintenance costs incredibly low. The Mercedes is also low cost due to digital servicing, but the Lucid is more expensive because it relies on an elite, exclusive network.
Now, let's talk about resale value. If I buy one of these, what is it worth after 3 years?
The safe investment is the Mercedes-Benz CLA. Because of the brand prestige and the advanced platform, we project it will retain 65 to 70% of its value. That is high.
And the Hyundai.
We project it retaining 55 to 60%. The 800-volt architecture prevents obsolescence, keeping it desirable in the used market.
And the Lucid.
The Lucid Air Pure is the startup risk. We project a retention of 50 to 55%. The initial depreciation is steeper, so it is a car better suited for long-term owners rather than someone looking to flip it after 3 years.
Before we wrap up the economics, we have to mention battery health. Do these batteries last?
Yes. Both Hyundai and Mercedes use sophisticated active thermal management systems. Hyundai is noted for keeping over 90% of its battery capacity even after 150,000 kilometers.
That is extremely reassuring. And Lucid.
Lucid uses high-density cylindrical cells. These are top-tier tech, but they are stressed more. Thermal management is critical to prevent decline after 4 or 5 years. You have to treat the battery well.
So we have unpacked the design, the tech, the charging, and the money. Let's summarize the verdicts for you, the listener.
I would categorize them like this. The piggy bank choice is the Hyundai IONIQ 6. It costs between 45,000 and 55,000 euros. You get low running costs, turning heads, and absolute peace of mind with the warranty.
The practical buyer's choice.
Exactly. Then we have the safe investment. The Mercedes CLA, starting from 55,000 euros. You get software dominance, ultra-fast charging, and easy resale.
And the third option.
The emotional choice, the Lucid Air Pure, priced over 85,000 euros. This is for the person who wants the absolute best that physics allows today, regardless of depreciation.
It comes down to what you value most.
It does. And looking at these 3 cars, it raises a provocative thought for anyone looking to buy a vehicle. We need to consider whether we are buying a car for how it drives today or for the asset it remains tomorrow.
That is the real question. In the electric age, is software stability now more valuable than horsepower?
Exactly. Is the programmer now more important than the mechanic?
Something for you to deeply consider as you look toward your next vehicle. We want to thank you very much for joining us on this deep dive into the EVs of 2026. We sincerely appreciate your time and your attention.
Thank you for listening. We hope this analysis helps you navigate the future.
Until next time, stay curious.